For centuries, the great stone walls of Salford Court stood as a place where justice was delivered, hope was lost, and history was written in whispers and screams. Long before the modern courts rose, this ground had earned a fearsome reputation. Criminals, debtors, murderers, and rioters all passed through its doors, many knowing they would never walk free again. Few places in Greater Manchester have witnessed so much human drama. The story begins in the 18th century, when justice in Salford was swift and often brutal. The courts became the beating heart of Lancashire's legal system, where judges travelled on assize to hear the county's most serious crimes. Outside, crowds gathered in their hundreds. Some came seeking justice, others simply for entertainment. Public executions were grim spectacles that attracted families, street sellers, and curious onlookers alike. Near the courts stood the gallows, where those condemned for murder, highway robbery, and other capital offences met their end. The silence before the trapdoor opened was often broken only by prayers, sobbing relatives, or the roar of the waiting crowd. Executions were intended to serve as a warning, but for many they became a public theatre. Beneath the courthouse lay another world. Hidden below the building were underground passageways connecting the courts with the nearby prison complex. Prisoners could be moved unseen beneath the streets, away from angry mobs or desperate friends hoping to rescue them. The tunnels were narrow, damp, and permanently cold. Iron rings fixed into the walls once secured prisoners as they waited to be escorted above. Many local historians believe these passages linked the courts with the former prison buildings that stood nearby, allowing secure movement without exposing prisoners to the streets. Although much has disappeared beneath later redevelopment, stories of the tunnels have survived through generations of Salford families. Standing above ground, few would ever imagine the footsteps echoing beneath them. The 19th century brought crime on an industrial scale. Salford's booming factories and overcrowded streets created both wealth and desperate poverty. The courts heard endless cases involving theft, violent assaults, organised gangs, child neglect and fraud. Some of Lancashire's most notorious murderers stood before its judges. Among the most infamous was Dr. Buck Ruxton, whose horrifying jigsaw murders shocked Britain in 1935. After murdering his wife Isabella and their housemaid Mary Rogerson, he dismembered their bodies in an attempt to hide their identities. The scientific investigation that followed became one of Britain's earliest breakthroughs in forensic medicine. Ruxton was convicted and sentenced to death after proceedings connected with Lancashire's justice system, his crimes remaining among the most chilling ever associated with the region. The courts also dealt with notorious poisoners, armed robbers, violent gangs, and countless criminals whose names have faded but whose victims have not. Yet it was not only criminals who made history here. The people of Salford often brought their anger directly to the courthouse. During the 19th century, periods of unemployment, political unrest, and soaring food prices sparked demonstrations that sometimes erupted into violent riots. Crowds gathered outside demanding fair wages, political reform, or protesting unpopular verdicts. Stones flew through windows, mounted police charged protesters, and soldiers were occasionally called to restore order. The nearby streets became battlefields between authority and ordinary working people struggling to survive. Inside, judges continued their work, while outside, thousands shouted for justice of a different kind. The early 20th century brought new challenges. Cases linked to organised crime, wartime black markets, and violent robberies filled the courtrooms. During both World Wars, the courts heard prosecutions under emergency wartime laws, while families anxiously waited outside for news of loved ones. Even the building itself gathered ghostly legends. Court staff, police officers, and cleaners have long spoken of strange footsteps in deserted corridors, unexplained voices after dark, and an uneasy feeling around the old basement areas. Whether born from imagination or centuries of sorrow, the stories persist. Some believe the spirits of prisoners who once walked the underground tunnels never truly left. Others say the weight of countless trials, sentences, and executions has somehow stained the very stone. Then there are the forgotten names, men transported across the world, women imprisoned for stealing bread, children sentenced for crimes born of poverty rather than wickedness. Their voices disappeared into history, but their stories remain woven into the fabric of Salford. Today, modern justice has replaced the spectacles of public executions and cheering crowds. The gallows have vanished, and much of the old prison has disappeared beneath newer buildings. The secret passages are largely hidden from view, remembered only in historical records and local tradition. Yet when you stand outside Salford courts, it is worth pausing for a moment. Beneath your feet may lie the route where shackled prisoners took their final walk from prison cells to the courtroom. Above your head once stood judges whose decisions shaped thousands of lives. Around you gathered crowds celebrating justice, mourning the innocent, protesting authority, or waiting for the condemned to emerge one last time. Few buildings in Salford have witnessed so much of humanity at its best and its worst. The walls have heard confessions, denials, prayers and verdicts. The tunnels have carried fear. The gallows delivered finality. And history has never truly left.